Well. Welcome back to the Mentor Roulette grind. This time, we have one of those heavily extreme days. This might even be a new record on extremes in one set. This set also took place in the same week that Kefka Ultimate released. Not that that mattered, I'm sure. That said, for Duty 1, we went to Shiva Extreme as Summoner. On the first attempt, we lose a healer to the circles right at the start, and then both of our melees die to being a bit too slow to run away from the staff spreads. In the ad phase, Fern attempts to invuln the sword stack. Don't try this, as the sword stack ignores all mitigation except barriers. A tank cannot reliably solo this, ever. Unfortunately, the other tank is not prepared for the shield bash, and even though no one else got hit, both healers went into panic mode and quickly spent all the MP they had, so there's little that can be done. I was trying to raise players to help as much as I could, but with only one swift cast, it simply takes too long. I even went down attempting to res both tanks one by one. For the second attempt, things look better, although everyone else got a vuln stack from the circles. Then comes the ad phase. The stack is done correctly, but then Shiva isn't turned away afterwards, so she shield bashes both healers and the other summoner to death, so I have to try and res everyone while the tanks are dealing with all of this nonsense. We somehow manage to recover simply because Shiva stops her onslaught to phase transition. And I continue to try and raise everyone I can to spare MP for the healers. First mechanic in phase 2, and we're down 2 players again. We manage to get everyone back up and slowly start to stabilize. Then both phase starts with Shiva pointing straight into the arena, and half the raid, including both healers, die. We somehow manage to get both healers and a tank back up before things get worse, only for both healers to slide into the wall and die. Somehow we're still alive into the third weapon, but this is also where this attempt ends. On the third attempt, both healers and the ninja go down to the staff spreads in phase 1, but we manage to quickly patch up, only for the gunbreaker to die to soloing the sword stack. Despite this, we manage to get into phase 2 with 2 low MP healers, but alive nonetheless. The moment the slippery ice happens, 3 players get cubed all at once. Here's a tip: Shiva never does anything during the slippery ice, so if you simply stop moving, you will be fine. Amazingly, despite Shiva being in the worst possible position imaginable with the bow, only a cubed ninja dies. We manage to stabilize during the bow phase as well, and Shiva is nice and gives us the easier to handle staff phase again, although we lose a healer and a ninja once again. And with only one healer with almost no MP, the whole party gets dangerously close to death, and Burn goes down. And I start spamming physic on the remaining tank due to losing confidence that the healers noticed. Slippery ice and Shiva circles lead into yet another double kill, into another bow phase taking out Fern, and with no tanks, I'm the tank, and we try to stall as much as possible by running, getting us just enough time to get our tanks back up. And here we go, cleanest Shiva kill ever. For Duty 2, we went to Ifrit Extreme as Dancer. Things go fine throughout, although it seems like there is no attempt at sharing the burden of tanking, leading Rain to continue tanking with 5 stacks. Yes, it is possible to do that, but every fire breath places the tank at so low HP that it requires immediate attention from the healers that they simply might not always have. It also becomes far more costly for the healers to manage, as you can see, especially on the white mage's MP throughout. Things remain steady right up until, yep, you guessed it, third nails. Rain takes a fire breath and a bit of extra damage without immediate attention from the healers and dies. Then Shaq goes down to random damage, then the black mage dies to Searing Winds, while the rest of the DPS section almost goes down to that too. And with all this chaos, the warrior dies with only 4 stacks. But we make it through. Surprisingly well done, but I'm not a fan of this tank switch by death strategy. For Duty 3, we went to Friendly Hangouts as Paladin. Time to spam Total Eclipse. For Duty 4, we are a 31-minute replacement Paladin in Sandoria, aka Sandoreo. Basically, free coin. So, some tips for this Yu-Gi-Oh player, I suppose. Chronos slaying is either a donut, pillar of cards, or circle, sphere of cards, followed by a half-room cleave. You can actually tell where the cleave is immediately, since the boss will be looking in the direction of the half-room cleave on his platform as he starts to cast. Once it comes to phase 2, Visions of Paradise does a whole bunch of stuff. 2 squares each do a plus-shaped AoE around them, while one of them trades places with the empty slot in the arena. The result is only one of the 9 squares is safe, and it is usually a square next to the one that moved. My final tip is about Gaia Stream. If you position yourself around 3 rows out from one wave and behind another, you can easily dodge all of the waves by rotating right, forward, left, back, repeatedly. But probably unsurprisingly, this run went very well. For duty 5, we went to St. Mocianne's Arboretum hard as White Mage. The second boss has this mechanic called Landslip, and the second time it is used, there are both line AoEs on rows and columns instead of just columns. But I forgot about that, so I positioned myself on a bad row and didn't realize until it was too late to switch. So check out this sweet knockback cancel. We ran into some greater troubles on the final boss. The way this boss works is that it has 2 primary mechanics. The first one being that almost any attack it can do, if it hits a platform, then that platform becomes dangerous to stand on for a while. So you have to make sure to aim spread markers off platforms and things like that. The other crucial mechanic is Mud Pie, which summons a mud slime on the arena. If it gets hit by attacks, it grows, and while it cannot grow that many times, each growth makes it explode for a lot of damage. And you're supposed to use your attacks to shove it onto a safe platform and protect it from being hit by the boss. That's not what happened here. The first mud slime explodes and the Black Mage immediately dies, with the Reaper barely surviving. The second mud slime spawns, it looks safe, and then by incredible means it suddenly gets comboed and explodes, killing the Black Mage again. Somehow we make it, but wow. Just wow. For duty 6, we went to Ignore the Flames as Black Mage. With my terrible AoE damage, I focused the boss down, hoping the rest of the party would handle the dogs, which went okay. For duty 7, we went to Dead Ends as Gunbreaker. Throughout the duty, our Pictomancer had quite a hard time, but let's focus on the first boss, as I have some tips to help with that one especially. The first tip is Wind in your back. The deadly circle AoEs are always positioned so that there is a wall of them right in the middle, and a hole in the outer ring. And the wind direction determines which way the circles move, so by having the wind in your back, you only have to handle the outer ring behind you, making it much easier. The second tip is that Cough Up is baited AoEs immediately followed by Friendship Dorito, so if you have the option to stand on top of someone else for Cough Up, it makes the follow-up much easier. If you do get hit by the fear, you have just enough time that fast gap closers can save you from the donut AoE that follows. Either way, the rest of the duty went well enough. For duty 8, we went to Thordan Extreme as Black Mage, and we have an immediate lever that is replaced. One of our tanks also doesn't seem too optimistic, but chose to stay, so good on them. On the first attempt, we made it all the way to the Paladin ads. By the way, I was made aware during this run about the Dragoon Dash save spots. Somehow, we managed to recover and make it to the Meteor phase, but, well, the limit break is too far along, and the Meteor phase begins with half the raid dying, so that's it. On the second attempt, we make it all the way to the Meteor phase again, and suddenly, half the raid dies, and we go down. Weird. On the third attempt, we actually hit the final phase, mostly alive too, and then we wipe to the Wild Charge. The way this mechanic works is that one of the healers gets stunned, and then a moment later a Wild Charge strikes them, which means a line stack where players further to the front takes extra damage. You're meant to put the off tank in front and then everyone minus the main tank in a line between the off tank and the stunned healer, to spread out the damage. If anyone in the line dies, the mechanic evolves into an instant party wipe for some reason, so this must be done right. On the fourth attempt, we lose due to both healers dying to the Dragoon Dashes, and this is when I learn of the guaranteed save spots. On the fifth attempt, we use them. Note, there are those inward pointing spears on the floor. Apparently, these indicate the save spots like so. During the Meteor phase, we have a close call where both healers are dead, but one had a res pending. We make it into the final phase. The wild charge is handled, but only thanks to random luck does one of the healers not run into death after the gaze hits them. Next mechanic is dodge wave AoEs, wild tower soaking, and not looking at the gaze mechanic all at once. Miraculously, the healer that gets gazed gets stopped by a stun just before they run into death. Next up, we have knockbacks accompanied by a stack marker, which also somehow works out with one dead healer. At this point, we may be able to run down Thordan before another mechanic can happen. And so we do. Very nicely done, team, and we hopefully inspired some more hope into our concerned tank. For duty 9, we went to Hell's Lid as Scholar, and with a very solid group, so we just crushed it. It was pretty funny that the final boss's most distinct mechanic, the waves following arrows, sort of just did the easiest patterns the whole way. For duty 10, we went to Leviathan Extreme as Dragoon. On the first attempt, on the first slide, one of the healers die, and die again just as they get raised. The remaining healer panics so much they spent all of their remaining MP spam healing, and ending up with too many debuff stacks, and too little MP to raise their co-healer. And then both tanks slide off the arena and it is over. We have a bit of a talk about handling the debuff and calming down and conserving MP and things like that. For the second attempt, everything seems smooth, and then for the second slides, both of our tanks go down, which is a very bad time for that, since we need a tank to deal with the wave spumes right about now. Our machinists sacrifice themselves for the greater good, while the rest of the DPS try to hold on to give the healers time to bring the tanks back. We're just missing the machinist for the third slide, which is followed by the final wave tooth hitting the field. But everyone was ready to blast it, so this was not a problem and we bring it home. My best tip for this fight is that Leviathan becomes invulnerable in stages, so trying to rush him down does nothing. Save your cooldowns for adds and other stuff in the fight, as that will make things both safer and easier to deal with. And then for duty 11, you know him. 50% man, 100% beard, it's your boy R to the A to the MUH, Ramuh Extreme, with me as Monk. For the first attempt, things fall apart just about as we hit the first ad phase due to fears not being handled at all. On the plus side, tanking is handled by Rain and Fern, so that will not be our problem. For the second attempt, after going over the whole fight, we have the most ridiculous goof up where neither tank had tank stands on. So, for the third attempt, we make it to the ad phase with only one death, and then 2 deaths to fears not being helped with twice. Although, somehow the second time, due to a conveniently timed ending of the ad phase, Ramuh got distracted doing other stuff for so long that we managed to survive the full fear duration. But then we lost both tanks, and only have a healer with no MP, so what a tragic moment to survive into. We review the mechanics as we essentially wiped 2 individuals not understanding them. And yes, Ramuh is that strict. On the fourth attempt, things go great into the ad phase, with everyone working together much better on the fears and everything. But the ad phase ends during a fear, so we have a tank and a DPS stuck until the next wave, which likely will coincide with tank switch timing, so we have Fern grab an extra orb to be safe. We hit 20% with everyone alive and well, and then 2 players die in an instant out of nowhere. Due to a major goof up, we then need Rain to overcharge to keep tanking so Fern doesn't have to with 3 overcharge stacks. And with Ramuh passing 10%, a Rolling Thunder into deaths instantly leads to only me, the Red Mage, and our tanks left alive. Thankfully, our Red Mage was already on the case with dealing with Rolling Thunder, so we lived it. We have a stick of butter, sent that limit break, and realized that Thunderspark is very livable if you're not feared. Our tanks are taking turns to tank to stretch their lives to the fullest. The Red Mage goes down as Ramuh does the same. Not even close! Very well done, team. For duty 12, we went to World of Darkness as an instant replacement Reaper. This is as good a time as any to review Cerberus mechanics. The classic is trying to coordinate A for adds, B for belly, C for chains, but ultimately it tends to devolve into chaos, so let me explain the mechanics themselves instead. Throughout the fight, plant adds called Wolf's Bane spawn and chase down players at random. These can hurt, but a couple DPS can take down a plant no problem, so if you see them, try to help. Early in the fight, Cerberus will do a spread marker on a random player and throw a gastric juice orb on them that regularly pulls a minimize effect. A moment later, Cerberus fires a baited AoE on a random player, which produces this purple slime on the floor. If you step on the slime, Cerberus will come eat you. If you are not minimized, you die. If you are minimized, you instead enter the belly. While in the belly, you fight stomach walls until they're all gone, while trying to survive the unknowns in there too. Once all of the walls are down, you get ejected. If you're curious what happens if the entire party enters the belly, I have a separate video on that. Check the description. Once you're ejected for successfully dealing with the belly, Cerberus is stunned for an extended period. Near the exit of the arena, there are 2 chains. Picking one up gives you a chain to hold for finite time, and connecting both chains to Cerberus resets an infinitely building haste buff on him back to 0. Neglecting this whole belly mechanic or failing to chain him correctly has a tendency to wipe groups unless your tanks are amazing at rotating invulns or something, which they are probably not. Optimally, have roughly 8 players go in the belly to make it quick. Usually it's whoever both knows how to and cares to. Everyone else deals with the ads outside. Optimally. For duty 13, we went back to ignore flames some more as Bard. And here, with good AoE, it's time for the Super Cleave. And finally for duty 14, we went to Alzadaal's Legacy as Dark Knight. The second boss got pretty spicy, so let's take a closer look on that one. Fight starts with Reaper dipping their toes into the electricity, and the white mage getting hit by the lasers. The moment the electric puddle reappears, the Reaper takes another dip, and everyone gets hit by the lasers this time. And then for the third laser mechanic, the Reaper tricks us into believing they learned, and then they dip into the puddle anyways. Simultaneously with everyone taking the laser, and then spread markers popping all at once. Everyone barely survives, but with dots ticking, I can only help one person with TPN, and the healer takes priority. At this point, it seems the healer has determined I'm safe to stand with, which I am. However, they don't mimic my movements well enough and get hit by the laser again. But this time, the Reaper didn't get hit by anything. At this point, the boss is just as confused as to why they're still alive. Another puddle appears, and this time, both the healer and Reaper choose to take a dip. The saving grace is that it seems finally no one got lasered, although the healer had to take a shortcut through the puddle to safety. What a ridiculous fight. On the final boss, we have another close call due to everyone goofing up the second speed mechanic, but it got nowhere near as bad as the second boss. Another set done and dusted, and this one, the most common duty type was Extremes. I believe we had a couple of healers queuing for most of the Extremes we got, leading to this chain of events. Just a tip if you choose to duo or party queue for Extremes like this as Sprouts. For your own good, I highly advise that you don't fill both tank or both healer slots so that more experienced players have a chance to assist you. Many of my hardest Extreme runs have been when both tanks were equally clueless or both healers were equally inexperienced and panicked, so please let an outsider have a turn. They might be worse, but they also might teach you something new. Anyway, we also passed 21/26 on the achievement. Now, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to support me and my channel more directly, you can become a member like these wonderful people here. You can also alternatively support me through Twitch or Ko-Fi. Links in the description. You can also support the channel by letting the YouTube algorithm know by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing, sharing, and hitting the bell to get notified when next I post a video. Fun fact, the total length of the second spin on the final boss in Alzadaal's Legacy appears to be 28 seconds. Long enough to reset a ton of maintained buffs and, unless you timed it perfectly, reset your combo. Black mages hated this especially back when they had timers on their Enochian. For good reason, since in Endwalker, you couldn't freeze it either.